in the building. MC Too Tall, master of sound quality, keeper of the chalice, killer for real, founding father figure of a genre of music that people insist does not exist, which is industrial rap. So it's a very funny thing. Uh, I've been calling myself the sole founding member of this particular genre now, because there's a lot of people that love industrial music. They love Ministry. They love Skinny Puppy, which, to be honest, their music makes me puke. And the more people that spew their hatred towards me for simply saying that Skinny Puppy doesn't fall within my taste of music, the more I bash Skinny Puppy. Not because of Skinny Puppy at this point, but because of the loyal fans that want to kill me for saying that I'm not a fan of Skinny Puppy. You see how that works. So I wish I could turn these things around, but I kind of have to lean over a little bit, get into my GQ kind of pose here. But I'm live on YouTube with 0 viewers. Look, I did not pass the million mark like Megan Kelly. Congratulations to Megan on that. I love Megan. Uh, she can put out those broadcasts about how the former network that Tucker Carlson once worked for are a bunch of snakes trying to defame this man, and it's backfiring on them. I love Megan Kelly's reports on that. I love her having certain guests on there that speak on it, like the Hodge twins, like Patrick Bet David, and which is where I learned of that offer, because he came on and just told Megan and Megan's audience the numbers, and he was the only one thus far, to actually publicly announce the facts and figures in numerical form that would put Tucker in a very advantageous position at Valuetainment, which is Patrick Bet David's baby there. So it's a very interesting thing, and I noticed that people that come from countries that are led by communist regimes don't want communism here. They are here because they despise communism. People who come from communist countries are here because they despise communism. Uh, I forgot the gentleman's name, but there was a YouTuber that used to walk around New York City, particularly the park over by Union Square across from Best Buy, which used to be the Virgin Megastore. And he would go interviewing these communist protesters, and they're talking about how they want the United States to be exactly like a Chairman Mao type country. And it's very interesting is that he would simply ask questions, and the answers he would get back just did not sound logical. So now that I've gone down this anti-communism rabbit hole, let me continue down this path here, and let me once again repeat that. I already said it about 2-3 times. So here's number 3 or 4. The vast majority of people who come to the United States from countries headed by communist regimes do not want to go back there. They don't, and even when these countries oust their communist regimes, they don't want to go back to the motherland that they came from because they don't trust the stability of their new experiment of democracy because they want to add their own twists and turns to things. In order to have a successful republic, in order to have a successful constitutional republic like the United States, and it is successful in spite of the woke agenda running rampant wild these days, you would have to emulate it to the T. I mean, you're gonna write off just because the, a few of these people had an indentured servant here or there, or whatever their small little shortcoming of slave ownership was. You're gonna write off all their accomplishments over this nonsense, and it is nonsense. And I'll say it again: that is the whole thing about slavery is nonsense. Don't don't tell me don't tell me that the people who've drawn up this system of government that we live in are not valid, and the system of government they've drawn up was invalid because the people who've drawn it up own have a certain percentage among them who had a few indentured servants here and there. You can't tell me that. Nothing is perfect because nothing made by mortal man can be perfect. This republic was not made by God Himself, but inspired by the existence of God. Though uh, I agree with William Cooper, not specifically a Christian nation, but follows a lot of principles because they simply make total sense. And yes, of course, since not a single one of them was anything outside of a denomination of Christianity, of course their upbringing is going to have some sort of influence on their writing of the Constitution. But well over 200 years, you know. Let's see. Okay, we're talking about 200, 247 years. 200, 247 years. And we're still here. Now, think of the oldest communist regime that was officially following the doctrines of Karl Marx. Think of all the countries modeled after a manifesto written by Karl Marx, who was an absolute failure in life. He was he was he was a lot like these American, Gen Y and Gen Z people that live in their parents' basement and sponge off their parents. The only difference is he was getting an allowance from Frederick Ingalls, who uh, who was a big time capitalist. So the Communist Manifesto would not come to be if its writer wasn't sponging off of a capitalist. And you're looking at, and you look at the oldest of those countries. The first one on record following this manifesto was the Soviet Union. Where's the Soviet Union? Where has the Soviet Union been since 1990 freaking one? Okay, where has the Soviet Union been since 1990 freaking one? Since Mikhail Gorbachev made his last announcement, and there was actually a peaceful transition from the Soviet Union to a democratic Russia. Now, granted, you know, uh, Boris Yeltsin was no George Washington by any stretch of the imagination. You know, we're not talking about a guy that woke up at 5:30 in the morning and cut down cherry trees and strictly went to bed at 9 o'clock at night. You know, we're talking about a guy that hit the bottle a lot. So their version of John Adams was by no stretch of the imagination of John Adams. It's this guy that's there now. And not by any stretch of the imagination was Thomas Jefferson a puppet or an empty suit put in place by John Adams. So that John Adams could become president again and remain president for the rest of his life, which is what happened in Russia, because again they didn't know how to stay on top of things. You know, when there's a new democracy in place, you know, unlike here, these countries tend to fail to stay on top of things and be like, see, because you got to give it a chance to flourish and be patient and put in a lot of hard work. And individuals are kind of forced to take individual accountability, in order to protect their rights and freedoms as citizens, so that they are not taken under the wing of a big daddy government as subjects. And so, yes, Soviet Union, I believe, was founded in 1914, if I'm not mistaken, and it crumbled to little bits and pieces peacefully in 1991. In 1991, and so that's what happened in 1990. F and one. No more Soviet Union. Now look at all these other countries that try to emulate communism. Uh, Vietnam, Cambodia, uh, you know, all these Soviets, all these Eastern European countries that were aligned with the Soviet Union, but weren't actually part of the Soviet Union. You know, like Romania, Bulgaria, and things like that. Okay, where are they? Uh, Now you look at the ones that are still in existence that are either socialist or communist. Okay, and we're not talking about Denmark and Sweden, which, will, by the way, debunked Bernie Sanders' lie about being socialist countries. And we're talking about countries like Cuba. They're miserable in Cuba. That's why they make rafts out of tire tubes. They make rafts out of car tires and swim here or swim to the Florida coast because they're miserable under a communist regime. Venezuela, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but you got a lot of Venezuelan immigrants in the United States. I've worked with a few of them, and they're very hardworking, ethical people with an understanding that live uh, a, if they live a life with accountability and work hard, they can succeed. I've seen I've seen some of the. I was actually before I left my job. I was actually training one of the best workers there, who was a beautiful, tall Venezuelan woman by the name of Yosma. We call her Jasmine because a lot of people didn't know how to pronounce the name Yosma. But I like to call people by what they like to be called. Their name. Gender's a different damn thing. But anyway, uh, and I won't say whether or not I confirmed whether or not this person was male or female. Uh, Nothing that looks like her could possibly be male. I'm pretty sure of it. Uh, I'll just leave it at that so I don't sound all sexist and misogynistic and pie houndish and stuff. But anyway, very hardworking person. That which was a big plus, and she was well on her way into management before she got called for a scholarship because she cracked the books between working all kinds of long hours in this restaurant or this food court. She cracked the books and studied hard late at night. Was at class early in the morning, and because of that, she had gotten a scholarship. So rather than pursue a career to become an assistant manager, she went on to other things. And I kind of wonder what Yosma is doing these days. But you can't have that if you live in Venezuela, particularly under the wrath of the late and not so great Hugo Chavez. And I forget who the president is there now. Of course, Hugo Chavez died about, I would say, 10, 12 years ago, something like that. And now this guy is there and hasn't let go of his power because communists rule. These people don't have elections. They don't step down. That's kind of messed up. Um, in these communist countries, also, they claim, oh, everybody's equal. Everybody's equal. Um, I think the person doing open heart surgery on me would be very disgruntled if he and the person who made my french fries that morning made the same exact hourly wage. and would probably take it out on his work. This whole make everything equal. What the what the hell is wrong with striving to have a little bit more than everybody else on your block? What the hell is wrong with that? And being willing to work for it honestly, to have a little bit more than what everybody else on your block has. Or or what the hell is wrong with working really hard, making an honest living to achieve something that's more custom to your personal lifestyle than that of what your neighbors worked for, which may be more fitting to their lifestyle. Doesn't even have to be doesn't have to be a question of more or less as far as quantity of each particular item in your life. You don't necessarily have to have more cars than your neighbor or more expensive cars than your neighbor. Maybe you're a person that likes electric scooters or whatever, but what the hell is wrong with working for something like that? Maybe you want your driveway paved a certain type of way, and it costs more to have your driveway paved that way than what your neighbor spent to have his driveway paved the way he wanted his driveway that he likes. And so you work hard enough to pay a contractor to make your driveway look like this. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, what I'm talking about makes perfect sense. People should be able to ha- get to a level if they're willing to work for it honestly and achieve what they want to achieve while working for it honestly. And you don't get that with communism. You just don't get that. You don't get perks when living under a communist regime. You don't get the you don't get you don't get certain pay and perks that differentiate you as an individual when you're under a communist regime. You're a worker ant from birth to death. There is no freedom in communism. And yes, these blue heads, social justice warriors, these people who look like women, and you only come to find out that they're actually biologically male, but they got their mascara on and their lipstick and their blue mohawks and their green armpit hairs and their um, estrogen induced breast growths happening. And if they lived under a communist regime, they would be considered batshit crazy and thrown in an insane asylum. They would be thrown in an insane asylum. Um, Alcoholics are thrown in hospitals, like locked in hospitals for the rest of their lives, even